And this is really glossing over a lot of theory, and all you other PhDs in the room and child development people, please kick in when appropriate. I think we'd all agree that Wikipedia is like the best thing in the world. I wish I had Wikipedia when I went through my program because it's so interesting. It summarizes stuff so quickly, and then there's links, and you can triangulate the links and so on. So just look up Piaget in Wikipedia and have a look at it and get a quick read. So just so that you start smart, pick one of these words right now and say it to your neighbor. Use it in a sentence like, joy, I've reached equilibration. All right, can you say that? Joy, I've reached equilibration. 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 Go ahead.
Equilibration.
Equilibration. That's good. Equilibration. That stale phonics and whole language debate. I'm going crazy. That's stale. All right. Angry Birds is reinforcement theory applied. I get so sensory motor when I get into a rental car. My ZPD, stay in my ZPD. Try that, ZPD.
ZPD.
That's zone of proximal development, Jim. For the next 30 minutes, can we all address each other as doctor or master? Dr. Gray? Yes, indeed. Indubitably. All right, let's just zoom in on one. What did I do with that? Epistemology. Epistemology. Say that. Epistemology. All right, that's good enough. All right, so just when you get home, try that on your spouse or one of your kids, and they'll think you're crazy, but then you can sound like you have your master's degree. YouTube is incredible. It's another incredible resource. I'm going to use some of YouTube today in terms of you can actually listen to some of these theorists talk. Chip Donahue did a wonderful talk on Erik Erikson's iPad, and so that's kind of a question that I've been thinking about, is what would each one of these theorists say about a tablet format today? So if you could bring them back from the past and put them right here, what would B.F. Skinner be talking about? Now, you know, in 1958, B.F. Skinner came out with a teaching machine. The teaching machine was mastery learning, that you could teach any child anything pretty much. If you broke it down, once they mastered it, they moved to the next level. So it's kind of like a ladder of success. And there's a lot of validity to that. And then, of course, reinforcement theory. Did anyone see the New York Times write-up about the book on Las Vegas gambling, on slot machines, and how they've transitioned to the video age? I mean, that is applied case study in interactive media design, and it is applied basic psychology 101 in terms of conditioning and shaping behavior to keep you, move you into the flow state so that you wake up 12 hours later with about $3,000 in debt. And that's what they do. And that's what Angry Birds does. And so these are powerful tools, and they're the keys to the magic. I mean, think about it. Angry Birds. How long did it take more effort to program Angry Birds than Ranger Rick? Absolutely not. But one of them's got a Super Bowl show. Simply because, and the Rovio guys will tell you, they figured out that to do the slingshot, that was a big breakthrough. And you control the whole thing, and it goes, and then when you hit the target, it slowly pulls you back. Not quickly, it's slowly. And they're making you anticipate. And they build that sense of anticipation, and that's the glue that keeps you engaged. So when you get that glue, and then you have the eyebrows on the birds, which is critical. It's one of those. Have you ever been to Finland in the winter? That's what they said. Because zaniness does help, but that psychology is the cake. The other stuff's the frosting. So let's talk about Maslow real fast. Maslow came out with this famous hierarchy of needs. And anyone who's taught in a school or worked in a public library knows that if kids don't get breakfast and have a sense of security, you can't teach them. The other stuff doesn't come. And the first person who showed this on a screen at Duster Magic was Lane Merrifield. Do any of you remember that? He showed Maslow? Yeah. And he mentioned that that's influenced Club Penguin. And I thought, that's really interesting, you know, but what he's tried to do with Club Penguin is give kids this space where kids feel good. You know, they feel secure. They know that things are going to be there when they come back the next time and build that sense of security. And I think we forget about that. So I'd like to start with Maslow. And I'd actually like you guys to become Maslow. Right now, I want you to become this guy. Channel him. What do you think he'd sound like? What do you think his voice would sound like? And what do you think he would say about interactive media? Now say that to the person sitting next to you in his voice. Go ahead. We can do this because your ego is removed. Go ahead. I want to hear it. All right. Would you nominate the person who you think did a really good job so they could share it with the whole group in the microphone? Abraham Maslow, would you like to comment on the state of children's interactive media? Abraham? Dr. Maslow? Are you here today? Are you in the room with us today?
Scott.
Anybody? Dr. Maslow? Calling Dr. Maslow.
I say Scott.
I think I have him over here.
Oh, hello, Dr. Maslow.
You got to feed the kids well before you get to getting the days to play.
Thank you, Doctor. Yeah. Pretty simple stuff. He was from Brooklyn, I think, right? He was from Chow. Give him a bagel. And
you use Yelp to find dinner.
what was that?
Use Yelp to find dinner.
Keep them fed, use Yelp. Did he do a self-actualization? So our goal is to reach self-actualization. And I think that applies to all of us as well. And make sure you take care of yourself. Take care of yourself, get your rest, and get your food. All right. Anyone else? All right, so let's go to another theorist. Yes?
Oh, just really quickly, I think that sort of the safety needs that the penguin farmer talked about is really important. And I was listening to someone talk about the beginning, I think, of Tumblr and how they sort of eschewed the whole commenting route just because of the fact that they wanted to provide a place for more of a self-actualization kind of experience, and that comments like have a tendency to sort of, you know, bring out the worst in people. And so that's definitely something to keep in mind, especially with kids.
And if something can take on Facebook, it could be forgetting about this. If people start feeling threatened or insecure, they'll run to something else because people need safety first. Mark is shaking his head, I think. So now I love this metaphor. Yeah.
I think one interesting point is in the whole gaming world is about rewards. So I think Maslow would have something to say about the difference between extrinsic and intrinsic rewards, whether you get badges for playing or not, or whether the bigger goal is actually to build confidence and, you know, move on and get excited about development.
Can you please look at page 3 in your handout packet, page 3, and name the 4 ingredients of intrinsic motivation. Thanks for reminding me that, because those are really sort of boiled down: enjoyment, control, interest, and feelings of success. And if you have those things, you can really tap into moving forward. And that's the key to learning an instrument. That's the key to learning anything that's really tricky. You have to find that it's enjoyment. And the tree metaphor has helped me a lot, because this is Maslow right here. And it builds a strong trunk, including things like breakfast. And if you have a strong trunk, you can start to branch out into the higher order kinds of things. And this is Gardner's 7 intelligences, now 9 intelligences. And Gardner's added ethics and morality kinds of things as other intelligence, which I think is great. And then it can branch out even further and eventually become fruit. And that fruit can be playing in a symphony, or it can be reciting at home, or it can be becoming the President of the United States. And I think I love the Barack Obama story as a parent, or a young child growing up with a single parent who's actually a graduate student. And I think that's probably the biggest disadvantage in the world, is having a graduate student as a parent and becoming President of the United States. And that's a fruit. And that wouldn't have happened without, you read his story, grandparents who really were there and pitched in and made him feel that he was very special. And that's key. So now let's talk about Skinner. Skinner, I think, is really important to understand. Skinner's in everything that we do. Let's listen to Skinner. Oh yeah, I need sound on this. Now, just imagine you're accountant.
From the pigeon to the human case, because one of the schedules is very effective with raptor pigeons, is what we call a variable ratio schedule, and that is at the heart of all the gambling devices, and has the same effect. It thinks you can become a pathological gambler just as a person can. Now,
So,
What do you get us from that?
what's that?
What do you get us from that?
Say it again.
We couldn't tell you anything.
We didn't hear.
We couldn't hear that.
We didn't get much.
Oh, you're grumpy, huh? All right.
No, I talk like
together
this.
with what we call scheduled reinforcement. Reinforcement of things called reward, and we can schedule it so that
Got it.
the reward occurs every now and then.
You don't need any more than that.
We need interpretation. Interpretation.
Interpretation, what is the interpretation of that? I want you to channel B.F. Skinner now. All right, same device, bunch of apps. How does Skinner, actually I am fortunate, because I have his glasses. And when I look through these glasses, I see the world. I see like iTunes and all those apps very differently. Oh my goodness, look at all that. All those flashcard apps, I love them. And so, back to a constructivist. The filter. Have a pair of glasses in your theoretical toolkit so you can actually put them on and see the world through each theoretical framework. It's really useful because those are constants. So that's Skinner. Now we get to talk about my dissertation. Nobody ever wants to hear about your doctoral dissertation. You're on the airplane like Jesse. Some stranger, you say, want to hear about my doctoral dissertation? They'll move. So this is mine. And what I wanted to do was I wanted to see if my reviews were valid. Because, you know, any reviewer is like, I give these low ratings and high ratings based on reinforcement, or based on, so I call on a friend. You might recognize his voice. Recognize this?
All right, click on the left.
I gave him a test on it.
Does that voice sound familiar? That's Darren's voice. So Darren designed this sorting game because it's very similar to anything that was in Reader Rabbit or Jumpstart preschool. Just a sorting game. No licensed characters, and it has burps. Time out. Same child next day with reinforcements turned off. No instructions. Hear the clicks? Those are commands. That's the child going, I want control. I counted those. Three times more work was done when I turned off the talking. I had to leave the burps. So, the takeaway from that is that
Question in the back.
if you want engagement, just stop talking. Yes.
So my question about that is, since she played it once and she got a lot of feedback, was she looking for feedback ultimately? In other words, she's playing and playing and playing, but you throw some in occasionally, the intermittent reinforcement to keep her going?
Yeah, I could have done a lot of tricks for that, but at the end of the day, I wanted a pure kind of controlled experimental experience. So I could have messed it up really easy. It's one of the real problems with research, is there's so many confounds. I had to strip away all kinds of things, licensed characters. I had to only look at one or two things. Otherwise, they start interfering, and you can't get an accurate comparison. And I used a paired t-test, which means that I alternated the kids. So the next kid that would come in would get the high control experience, and then the next day they get all the talking. So I modified that, and I showed that there was statistical significance to this, and they gave me a bloody PhD from that. Sweet, all right?
And Warren, there was also, it wasn't just feedback, it was, you couldn't interrupt the feedback.
That's right.
So I think every time the feedback was going, the kid was pretty much kind of wait for that.
But what I found, Mark, was that kids would sit for either experience for about 5 minutes. They didn't seem to mind. My hypothesis was they would vote with their feet and leave. But what I realized is that kids are so desperate in a lot of early childhood settings that you want to go play with a stranger with a game? Oh, sure. Kind of a boring game? Yeah, it's okay.
Another piece of there is, I think, that you tapped into an intrinsic play pattern. Is that nurturing piece, like playing with dolls, you're feeding things.
Yeah.
And so that ties into there in the same way as Birch ties into knocking down blocks.
Yeah, look at this kid. This is how I feel in some days.
Now we do.
Did you know the harder you press, the faster it works?
Are you going to release this in the App Store?
Sensory motor is when you get frustrated, you go back a stage.
Oh my! We're stuck!
Oh,
So she's holding the mouse button down. And I learned a whole lot about that a mouse is really not just one click, it's an up and a down. It's a two-motor thing. And one of the reasons the iPad's so powerful is it's one in touch. And that's why it dropped the developmental basement down almost a year.
it's reducing the cognitive load.
Yeah, thank you. It reduces the cognitive load. Please say that to your neighbor. It reduces the cognitive load. Dr. Trailer, thank you very much. All right, so let's talk about Piaget. Piaget is not a watch. Piaget, he is a watch, but Piaget is Jean Piaget. Now we have a French guy. Sir, could you tell us the proper pronunciation for Jean Piaget?
Jean Piaget.
Oh, please do it again. Please silence in the room. One more time.
Jean Piaget.
Henry and John.
Did you get tingles, Jim? Jean Piaget. Thank you. So he actually was scoring IQ tests when he became interested. He was a biologist who did a really smart biologist who was like 12, and he did a paper on muscles in biology. He was really interested in evolution and so on. And then became interested in children with why don't kids all have high IQs, and worked with Binet in France. And so the trouble was he wrote everything in French or German, and his work wasn't translated. Same with Vygotsky. A lot of those ideas didn't come over for a long time. He developed, his big breakthrough was he developed stage theory. That a child at birth is different than a child at age 2, is different than a child at age 5. And that stage theory really helped people, where I was at High Scope Educational Research Foundation trying to develop a curriculum to build a curriculum around this stage theory framework. And that's very valid today. That curriculum, Piaget, he would say if he was here, children are active learners. So I want you to channel Piaget, same thing as before. I have his hair.
L'éducation, est-ce qu'il nous faut former des enfants et des individus et qu'ils soient simplement capables d'apprendre ce qui est déjà connu, de répéter ce qui est déjà acquis par les générations antérieures, ou bien est-ce qu'il s'agit de...
So he'd say, every time you teach a child something, you prevent them the opportunity to discover it for themselves. So don't rob children the delight of discovery with your experience. Let them experience the delight. So that's, I think, what he would say. And so the stage theory is there. You have the ability to see here, or you can see on page 3 or page 4, all about constructivism. And the key here is equilibration versus disequilibration. Your job as an interactive media designer is to confuse children. Every time you enter a new room or you start up an app, you inflict disequilibration. You inflict confusion. The key is to channel that confusion and move it in the right direction. So you're a professional confuser. That's what your job is. That's what all educators do. What the child feels discomfort, and they want to make everything fit inside their head again. And so they play, or they try to fix it. So they feel like, oh, and that's called equilibration. Got it. And then they move to the next level. And Darren gave this beautiful talk at AppCamp on playing the cornet. And how his feelings of disequilibration kept driving him to try to play it a little bit better. And so that can happen. And he had a nemesis, a note. So Darren, this is for you, my friend. So this is an instrument I started playing. I hope this is my mouthpiece. Cheers. And you start out with, when you're a kid, and it sounds kind of like that, right, Matthew? And you do the B flat scale. Right? And you hear this in schools all across the United States and the world as kids struggle. This is just steel on muscle, and everything else is learning. Think how abstract this is. The valves are channeling the air through this. You actually have to learn this very extremely weird and abstract interface when you're concrete operational. That's why kids hate music, right? It's formal operations, which is developed in the Baroque ages, to channel what used to be a long length of pipe into all of this. And then you start to go, then you get a, oh, I played a C, sweet. And I did it faster, and that feels good, and I'm disequilibrated. Then you get, so sweet. You can kind of shake your hand. and you just go, oh, man. I'm moving myself forward. And so it wasn't until I was like 5 years ago where I said, I remembered I could play the trumpet. I spent, my first 20 years of my life thinking I could beat Doc Severinsen, then I realized that wasn't going to happen. But I said, thanks to sort of Darren's inspiration and others, that we can all keep learning stuff. And so I started to play again. And I experienced that joy, and I think part of this process is starting to learn. So Darren, that's for you.
That's my horn. I hope everyone remembers what you did.
So it's important, and it can take you places. Wherever it takes you, you don't know. So and so I did this exercise with my class at NYU.
Warren, your host today.
Where I pretty much almost was going to get them all arrested by sending them to the beach with cameras or to a public place, and I asked them to videotape children. Really smart idea. My wife was not very happy, but the challenge was like go to a baseball game and watch kids, or go to a park and watch kids and identify each stage. So that's what I would do right now if we had a whole week. Is you go out and find some kids in their native environment, and you'll start to see how a child at the shore, the Jersey Shore, sees these strange foreign objects for the first time, and how they learn about them, and how they react. And so much is through touch and sensory motor. And this kid is great. Is a great pre-operational thing because his mind is where the sand is. He is not aware of the water, but all of a sudden,
The waves, which is another attribute introduced here, which causes you to forget about your footprints, which are washed away in your memory, and moves you to other thoughts. In this case,
so become a child watcher. A little bit. Study them. You make stuff for them, so learn about them. And you layer over Piaget's stage theory, and it's really a strong exercise in figuring out this medium. Now I take you to Italy. Maria Montessori was Italy's first female physician. She was a pioneer in learning, working with the low-income, hard-to-teach children in the Roman slums. Big problems there, big problems. She was a tough woman, and I think she loved technology. She came to the United States of America, was introduced by John Dewey, sort of looked down upon her, and she filled Carnegie Hall twice to learn about learning, on a talk, a lecture about teaching materials with slides, with audiovisual materials. Now, that's not the kind of thing that we do today. We don't celebrate educators, but she was a rock star at the time. And so Montessori was a constructivist. She could have literally delivered both Vygotsky and Piaget, because they were born the year she finished medical school. In terms of age, they were in different places, but she was a constructivist. She was inspired by Froebel, but she looked at learning like a physician, like the American Academy of Pediatrics would. How do we fix this? And she quickly realized, as a very smart person, I think, that kids learn by being active and experiencing, and she created autodidactic materials. Autodidactic materials. That, when you play with an iPad, you start to realize it's really the ultimate autodidactic material. Letter school. Do you remember letter school? When you move down the letter, if you if you get confused or stray off the line, all of a sudden it bounces back, and then the little arrow tells you what to do next. That's autodidactic. She was playing with high tech at the time, sandpaper. So she was really a pioneer, and she got results. That was hard to teach kids in the Roman slums, started to prosper, and she became very famous. And that is the beginning of the Montessorian idea. And I like to say that, you can see these things, and these are controversial ideas, and everybody in the Montessori community is happy with technology, and they're having a lot of debate. But it's easy to see the ideas directly moved in. The crash courses that Edison also liked her, and Alexander Graham Bell sponsored her trip over. And she was a single parent. Actually, I'm not sure on that. But the children are working as if I did not exist. So the teacher, if you're doing a good job as a teacher or apt developer, you get out of the way. So that's Montessori. I have her hair right here. Oh my God, I've got one of her earrings. Do you realize how precious that is? So if you were to put on this hair, what would Montessori say about tablets? Please share with the person sitting next to you. Go. Okay, so I'm curious to know what you think Montessori would say if she were alive and walk in right through that door right now. Can you share any of your ideas? What came up? What would Montessori say about interactive media?
Wouldn't she want to combine it with the real world somehow? Sorry.
Yes, yeah. Wouldn't she want to combine it with the real world somehow? Absolutely. I think she would be really strong about it's just another option. It doesn't replace real sand and so on. It's another way to experience. Anybody else?
She'd also like the fact that when you open that iPad, there's all those choices, and it's all self-directed, and you can, whatever interest you is where you can go.
And there's a lot of people who want to take away the home key. And we were cleaning Chris's iPad the other day, and we noticed that there was a lot of oil and grease and grime right around the home key. And they go, why do the kids touch that so much? And then our new thing with apps is it got homed. Your app got homed, okay? You don't want your app to get home. But I wouldn't like it if there was a real Montessori, if she were to walk through this room right now.
Oh, I think it is the most wonderful, I can't do Italian, I'm sorry. I'll just make it British. I think it's a fabulous learning environment for children. I think the exciting thing about Montessori is she knows that this is about an environment, that it's not about a single app. It's that whatever kid, wherever that child is at learning, they can find what they need on the app. That's what I think she would be very excited about. It's not the same iPad for every learner. It's an iPad with different learning experiences for everyone.
Grazie, Dr. Chamber. That's Dr. Raskin.
Please, I have it already. It's just hidden. But she might say that there isn't enough multi-sensory activity in the tablet. For example, when you learn the letter, you touch it, you feel it, you smell it, you taste it. You eat
yes.
it, and so the tablet, well, it's
glass.
That's exactly right, and missing all of those things. Although more and more you're seeing like Cypriot things that are manipulative as well as...
Well, what I want the science panel to talk about, science on glass. It is glass. It's all symbolic. It's all abstract. We must tap the power without minimizing the capability. Enough of that. Yes, doctor?
I think one of the really big differences between Montessori and Skinner is how we see parents give iPads to kids. I I think as Skinner and Montessori as parents, Skinner would say, if you're good and you do what I tell you to, you can have some iPad time tonight. Whereas Montessori would see the iPad not as a reward, but as part of the journey for learning.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Skinner sees iPad as a reward for good behavior. It's something you do if you do what you want, whereas she sees it as part of the journey in the learning process. Very nice.
Dr. Grady, you've been so quiet back there. Did you have anything you wanted to weigh in on?
He doesn't have to do the weight, right?
I think it'd be awesome.
It would be pretty awesome.
And the excuse to have hair again. Now, I think Maria would say it is just tactile. It's not tactile enough. She'd worry about it. The home button is wonderful because you can feel it. And if only you could have that experience across all the class. On the other hand, every app is a prepared environment. Every app is a context where the teacher, the designer, the developer can think about what kids could learn, set up an environment, and then the child can explore and construct.
Yeah. So you set the stage, basically lay out and set the table for the learning, and set literally the total tea party table, and you have a lot of control on that whole experience. Now, are there any other PhDs that I've forgotten that need to share? Doctor?
No need to share.
Oh, your PhD. Okay. Because if you don't want to be if you want to get another continuing, if anyone wants to be a PhD, you can sign up for Chip will make you one. Any other comments? Rob? Yeah, back there.
So, I've heard this a few times before from Lauren, and I've sort of like it's now intrinsic, but what we never discuss, and I don't know if any of your friends up there ever discussed, is the speed. I'm seeing a lot of discussion about the speed of slow learning versus fast learning. And a lot of the apps that are given to kids are to promote faster and faster and faster learning. And we actually had Nolan Bushnell speak at CES, and his new thing is to turn learning into as much fun as a video game, but it really is sort of Kumon meets apps. It's the idea that there's a certain amount of knowledge that you have to learn really quickly and really deeply, like the bones of the body or something, and they will be part of what you do forever. So none of these guys have ever really discussed slow versus fast learning, and I think it's sort of like slow versus fast cooking, or...
Actually, Piaget had a big problem with the Americanization of pedagogy. He was a real anti-Thorndike. Because Thorndike was kind of like Nolan Bushnell. If you turn up the oven, you bake the cake faster. Right? No, you burn the cake. You burn the kid. And so that's what I wanted to say to Nolan. Go back to Chuck E. Cheese, guy. Stay out of it. Good luck with this. But I mean, part of me is going, yes, reform education. Maybe you could do it.
Do you think he's heading up an engineer's approach?
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of people who think they can engineer learning, and it's crazy. So here's another big concept I want to drop on you, and then I want to give you a little test. This is Vygotsky, the zone of proximal development. Now, every one of your learning experiences has this zone, and the idea is that if I hang out with a master trumpet player in the Philharmonic, or maybe if I play with one of Touch Press's things on the orchestra, I can become a better trumpet player. So watch this movie.
And the level of assisted performance is the zone of proximal development. It is here where the teacher must focus attention. Lev Vygotsky was born about 100 years ago in 1896 in Tsarist Russia. As Jews, the Vygotsky family, however prosperous, were outsiders in Russia under Tsar Nicholas, to limits on how many could be formally educated. The odds were great, but miraculously, Vygotsky gained a place. He also became interested in psychology and began to research in this field. He also managed to write 7 books and dozens of articles before dying at age 37 in 1934. For Vygotsky, the social context influences more than just attitudes and beliefs. it has a profound influence on how we think as well as what we think. Vygotsky and his colleagues witnessed the rapid social changes in the Soviet Union that occurred when non-technical cultures get to participate in the quite technically advanced Western culture of the new empire. Vygotsky's work reminds us of the processes necessary for children to regulate their own internal and external behavior. Encouraging children to draw what they are experiencing, to talk to each other about it, to write about it, and even to talk to themselves about it, enables them to move towards being independent learners.
Like doodle press.
Good job, Alex.
Okay, so that was during the Industrial Revolution. We're now in the Information Age revolution. And another key word is social. Social constructivism. It doesn't happen just in the individual. Piaget was all about the individual mollusk or whatever, sort of biology. Vygotsky was looking at the whole society. In his job, he was only 37 when he died of tuberculosis. And he did all of that publishing, which is remarkable. Piaget, on the other hand, born the same year, lived to 80-something. So very different challenge to help move a culture. That was his job. We want to move a culture too. We want to move into the next intellectual renaissance. Wouldn't that be incredible? And so hopefully we can do that. So Vygotsky, big ideas. I just want to end this with a test. If you could get out your lasers and let you know that every theory or every app has a chance, uses technology. It's like a Trojan horse. Nolan Bushnell wants to use technology to help, and he has very good intentions. The way he approaches it is quite behavioral. And so other people want to use technology like Pepper, who studied with Piaget, said, I'm going to use technology, microprocessors. How am I going to use them? Well, not the way Skinner uses them. I'm going to use them to help kids build and construct. I'm going to make a computer language. So everyone uses technology and will argue, so be aware of that. And there's dust and magic on both sides. Get back to our buzzwords. Let's just do this one. Genetic epistemology. That's a good one. Genetic epistemology. Again. Genetic epistemology. Lasers out, please. Lasers out. Please say the word genetic epistemology and shoot at each syllable as you say it. Genetic epistemology. Genetic epistemology. Now say it really fast. Genetic epistemology. Genetic epistemology. Say it really quietly. When you go on the plane, just whisper that to the person next to you. I'm a genetic epistemologist. I'm a genetic epistemologist. That'll be good. That'll get a scratch on your hands. All right.
Just don't say it to the TSA.
How, if Chip Donnie was standing here, he'd say, how does your work support developmentally appropriate practice? DAP. It's another great buzzword if you're around early childhood educators. Hey, I'm DAP. DAP, developmentally appropriate practice, duh. So everything is developmental. It means it fits in that Piagetian framework. Your laser at the first stage. The answer is in your handout packet. What does the child experience first? That would be, please shoot. Person who's
oh wait, we got two.
I will say this. Good. Wow, look at that.
You've got two.
We're bipolar.
Yep. Here, just kill one.
There. All right. Next up. Oh. All right. First sensory motor. What's next? Very good. Pre-operational is ages 3 to 5. It's the harder you push the elevator button, the faster it gets there. It's you can fool kids. You can manipulate them. Next, concrete operational. Nickels are more valuable than dimes because they're bigger. Slice the banana into more pieces, you get more. Pour it in faster, there's more water. And finally, there's formal operational. Good. Next. What is foo? What is foo? It's not the Foo Fighters, and it's not Egg Foo Young. It's feelings of ownership. And if you read your handout package, you'd know that exactly. Feelings of ownership. And if you build that into your experience through a skin or any way that you do it, even in I Spy, putting the child's name, when they sign in, they take that name again and put it on the gate of the mansion. So it's, hey, that's me. Who said this quote? It's in your handout packet. I found that the best way to give advice to children is to find out what they want and then advise them to do it. Was it Barbara Chamberlain, Harry Truman, or George Foreman? That's Harry Truman said that. And it's so true. When you ride a horse in the direction it's going, and Mark Schlichting with the Living Books, he wouldn't let you interrupt some of the routines. And the term that I like is motivation inertia. So because if you have the sense, and there's a real art to this in design, if you have the sense knowing when to let the child interrupt, you can really make magic. Julia Child uses butter like Tokaboka uses. Do they use zany graphics? Do they use kid testing? You're all wrong. Wrong, wrong, wrong. They use MMCWS. Duh, come on guys. What's MMCWS mean? Tokaboka, that's the magic. M is... You didn't read your homework. Page 21. Julia Child understands the magic of butter, a substance that can pull together diverse ingredients to create a delightful culinary sensation. MMCWS is materials. So give the child materials to manipulate at the start. They could flip things. When Lori was moving the iPad around, that's kind of a material, all right? Manipulation of the materials, the opportunity to flip things or squeeze things or pull things, manipulate. They want to manipulate like Play-Doh. Materials manipulation. C is choice. Give them the opportunity to choose what path they want. Multiple ways to get to the same thing. Choice. S is support. Do it right in the right way and artfully. Don't give them a lecture on directions at the beginning. And then 3 is language, because language is the glue that pulls it all together. Jesse?
W is for language. I'm lost here, Warren. I'm trying to keep up.
Oh, words.
Oh,
sorry. It's kind of simplified. All right, and of course they use kit testing stuff. I want to point you out at this thing that's hanging up on this post. That is a thing from a blind, a shade, that I used when I was teaching preschool. And that's a daily routine. It starts at the bottom, I think at the bottom, with a picture, all symbols, with language and words. And it starts on one dimension. So a pre-operational child needs one dimension, okay? Trouble with a lot of apps is it's multiple layers of screens, and that's where it gets cluttered up. Tokaboka, great example of one-dimensional kinds of experiences on a screen. It's very well thought out so that when you slide this way, it all moves and you can see exactly what you're doing. What I used to do is put a tag or a big clip on that, and I'd move from the beginning of the day to the end of the day, and the kids could see where they were all day, and they settle down. The period with the longer period, plan, do, or be right there, is the longest line. So they can see that's when they go home. That's when they eat lunch with symbols, and I'm sorry for you guys in the back. So keep things on one dimension. Last one, I think. What is the golden rule of children's interactive media? Number 1, tricking them into clicking is a great way to increase ad views. 2, build little weasels for all the cash you can. And 3, treat every child as if he or she were your own. Click on the one that is the golden rule of children's interactive media. And we got a big morality problem. You're sick! Thank you very much.